Hi everybody, it's Richard here again and welcome to another video. Now this is the second part of where I show my 10 worst songs from my 10 favourite artists, and today is my second favourite artist of all time, Marc Bolan T Rex, who I have loved for years. I was a big fan of him. Well, I was a fan of him whenever they were going around 1973, but it was 1980 where I really got into them. I've been a fan ever since. So here are 10 songs that I'm not keen on. I don't think they're all disasters, maybe the first couple or three, but they would be down there as 10 of my least favourite, the worst. Okay, so coming in at number 10, and we have from this album here, and this is Zinc Alloy and the Hidden Riders of Tomorrow, or A Queen Cage in August. Bit of a mouthful there. And it's the last track on the album, called The Leopards, featuring Gardenia and the Mighty Slug. Another mouthful, and the actual title itself puts me off. Now this is one of those narration songs which I just can't be bothered with, but there is a nice little guitar lick at the end of each verse. There's no such chorus as such, and the backing vocals by Gloria Jones and Sister Pat Hall are actually very prominent in the mix. Funny enough, whenever I first got this album, I was 1983, and there's only 3 songs I liked off it at the time: Venus Loon, Teenage Dream obviously, and this one. But as time has gone by, this is the one that I've just got to appreciate less and less. So that's not my number 10. At number 9, and it's a single from 1976, and it's Laser Love. Now this is not a bad track, I just think it's too slickly produced and it's too twee in sound. There is a live version of this that you can get as a bootleg, and it's a much heavier sound and it is much better. But I think the video of Top of the Pops performance puts me off this, where he is Bolantino in his suit and his slicked back curly hair, and he looks absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, Laser Love, never been one of my favourites, and I think it tries too hard to be a hit single with the wee sort of catchy dance bit in the middle. Not one of my favourites, so Laser Love is my number 9. At number 8, and we have from the Light of Love album in 1974. This is an American only album. This later became Bolan's Zip Gun, with a few tracks taken off and a couple of other ones put on. But I'll show this one for this song, and it's the track Token of My Love, which is a bit of a blues workout. It's an okay song, but it's very badly produced. Now there is a live version that you find, is it the Don Kircher show, where he's very puffy looking, he doesn't look too well at all, he looks all drugged up, and it's a much better, heavier version. But this here one here, I think is just badly produced, and it's a bit of a dirge really. So Token of My Love gets my number 8. Okay, at number 7, we go back to Zinc Alloy album, and it's the track Nameless, Wildness. And there's a couple of reasons why I'm not as keen on this. One, I think it copies that Bolan bop too much. It sounds a bit too much like Rock On, Thunderwing, Baby Boomerang, and it's not as good as those tracks. And 2, the backing vocals are too prominent in the mix again. It's just not fantastic. I think it's very uninspired. Other tracks that he's done on this album, which are completely different, at least they were different. This one is trying to hark back to that sort of Slider era, and it's not successful at all. So my number 7 is Nameless, Wildness. Okay, number 6, and it is from the Futuristic Dragon album, and it's Ride My Wheels, and this ended up as the B-side of Celebrate Summer. Now I'll give this song credit because he always wanted to be more soulful, and this has a more soulful sound. The actual chorus itself is dreadful. I'm just a boy, be my toy, ride my wheels, and it's very heavy on the backing vocals with Gloria Jones. However, the verses themselves are actually quite good, and it's quite a decent funky little number, but it's just the chorus really marks this down for me, and I've never been a huge fan, so it gets my number 6, Ride My Wheels. At number 5, and you think I'm picking on this album, well, I actually do really like this album, But it's the track You've Got to Jive to Stay Alive and Spanish Midnight. They're sort of stuck together, and they're two sort of little ideas, and I mean very sparse ideas, and that's it. I think You've Got to Jive probably took about a minute and a half to write, and Spanish Midnight about 15 seconds. No, they could have been expanded, and they maybe should have been expanded, but You've Got to Jive, Jive to Stay Alive, I just think is lazy and it's not very inspired again. And Spanish Midnight, which sounds okay, but I could have written it, and that's how bad. But never been my favourite, and so it gets my number 5. You've Got to Jive to Stay Alive in Spanish Midnight. Okay, at number 4, and we have from the Dandelion Underworld album, and it is Groove a Little, and this ended up as the B-side of Dandelion Underworld itself, along with the track Tame My Tiger, which is much better. This harkens back really to the old rock and roll days, and it sounds like The Boy from New York City. Darks had a big hit with that, I remember, and it's the same sort of tune, and I just think it's boring. Now, he was very keen on this, because as I said, he put it on the B-side. He also recorded it for the Marc shows, and he played it live during 1977. But never been a favourite of mine. I know Ian from Ranking Obscure really likes this, but I've never liked it, and it's my number 4. Okay, at number 3, and rather than show the American album, we'll show Bolan's Zip Gun, and it's the track Precious Star, which is an actual piano-led song, but the lyrics are so basic, they're almost childish. Now, the problem I think Marc Bolan had was, if he wasn't writing stuff that you couldn't understand a word of what he was talking about, which he's very good at, and he tried to write basic lyrics, they became very basic that a 12-year-old could have written. And this is the case with Precious Star. I don't think it's very well produced either, and it's very clunky. It tries to be catchy, and it's just not for me. Now, a lot of people think this should have been a single, but I think if it was, it would have been an absolute disaster. So Precious Star for me is number 3, and it's not great, from Bolan's Zip Gun and Light of Love. Okay, number 2 is actually a single, and it's his 3rd single, released in 1966, and it's from this album here, Electronic Music. Now, you can buy the single, but it'll cost you a fortune. You're talking 3, maybe 4 figures, and the song is Hippie Gumbo. Now, way back in 1966, I think it was 66 or 65, whatever, Marc Bolan went in and performed demos for Simon Napier Bell, and they were recorded, and they went out in 74 as the album The Beginning of Doves. Originally, they were to go out in 72 on an album called Hard on Love, but they did come out, and I think that this single is actually the demo with a few bells and whistles put on, and it is a dirge, it really is. And Marc has his Larry the Lamb voice, and I've never liked it. Now, in 1981, Simon Napier Bell took some of those demos and made an album out of them by bringing in musicians and padding them all out, and I think they sound better. They don't sound what Marc Bolan would have sounded, but they sound better. But with Hippie Gumbo, it's just boring. And it does show the way to Tyrannosaurus Rex in a way, because he's sitting there probably cross-legged with an acoustic guitar. But I just don't think there's any life in the track at all, and it gets my number 2. And so the worst track by Marc Bolan and T Rex, and it's actually Tyrannosaurus Rex, and it comes from this album, Prophets, Seers and Sages, The Angels of the Ages, and it's the last track on the album, Scene Scoff Dynasty. Now, this is actually one of the longest songs on this album, but basically there's no music. It's just Marc singing and clapping his hands, and Steve took actually doing a few little vocal impressions on top of them, some weird sounds, and it's not very good. Now, there is a basic melody to it, and I think the song would have been improved if he had got out his guitar and Steve got out the bongos and started playing away. But as it is, just singing away, clapping the hands, kind of reminds me a little bit of David Bowie's Please Mr. Gravedigger, and I think that's obviously where the influence came from. but it just doesn't work for me, and thank goodness it's the last track on the album and it never gets played. I actually played it last week a couple of times just to see if it was as bad as I always thought it was, and to me it is. So the worst track that Marc released in his lifetime is Siege Golf Dynasty. So that's my number 1. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. That was fun for me to do. I was playing a lot of these songs again just to see, and I think a couple actually were going to be in the top 10 which I actually like a lot more now, and one was My Little Baby, which I used to hate, but I had to take it out because I quite enjoyed it. Okay, that's me. All the best now. Bye bye.